Well, it's been quite a while, but I'm back, I guess I could say. I hope to be making some walkthroughs, tutorials on a more regular basis. Um, so something I want to take a look at today, I posted my demo reel a few months back on YouTube. Hopefully many of you have seen it. And here's one of the pieces that was in that reel. And I think I would just like to share some of the techniques I used to make this today. Now, we're not going to go over how to make all of the items. It's all just basic modeling and texturing and materials and things. But what we'll go over is basically how to get this seamless rolling ball to work. And if we take a look here in Blender, this is basically what it is. The ball looks a little different. I wanted to give it a design so you could see it rolling. But we're basically going to make this. So you can see how you can get it to follow a path, how you can get it to roll accordingly, and then also to loop seamlessly with the camera following. I want to make sure I give credit where credit is due, though, and say where I got this idea from. Drop Frame Studio made a tutorial on this endless ball loop. They called it Marble Run here. And basically, I took what Drop Frame Studio did and I adapted it from Cinema 4D to Blender. So the idea came directly from Drop Frame Studio. I got some of the ideas about how to actually make it loop from here, but I adapted it for Blender. So check out Drop Frame Studio for some Cinema 4D tutorials if you'd like to, and thank you very much for this idea. Now, to save some time, I already have these items created. We've got our path for the ball to follow. We've got our stage with our path shape cut out of it. In case you want to know how this was made, it is simply a mesh object. Let's go over here to our object display and we'll show it, let's say wire. Basically just a polygon object that is created in that shape. And I added a subdivision surface modifier to get it to look smooth and some edges. It's shade smooth, so that's shade smooth as well. Super simple shape to make. The reason I did not do this with a curve is because this is a curve here. If we take this curve, some of you might say, oh yeah, just take the curve and bevel it and increase the depth. But once we get up to the size that we need for it, you notice we get this nasty pinching over here. Shift to Z, let's solo it. We get this nasty pinching over here. I don't know how to fix that problem. I tried using an object. I tried setting the profile carefully, but we always get these overlaps. If somebody knows how to do this, beveling a curve without getting overlap, please let me know. That will be really great to know. Okay, so instead, I just used a mesh object that made it super simple and got the same result that I was looking for. Okay, so let's take this object here and set its display back to bounds, so it's out of our way. And now, so we have our curve. We got the curve. Let me just show you real quick. Put this right back to what it was. Actually, we don't even have to do that. We can just tab into it. So to get that curve, once you have created this path, just go to edges. Take this edge, hold Alt. You can get this guy. Shift D. Okay. Now you have that object. Hit P to separate it. If you go back into object mode and you change its display back into solid, you now see you have this curve, or excuse me, it's a mesh rather, it's a mesh object. Make sure you come over here and simply apply your modifiers, right click on it, convert to curve. Okay, and now you got your curve. So let's now use this curve in order to get our ball to roll. So we have our sphere, I already created that right here. Okay, let's keep it in wireframe for just a moment. First things first, let's get this ball attached to the curve. To do that, we can use a constraint, an object constraint. So we're here in our constraints tab, and we want to use a follow path constraint. Pretty simple. Once we pick our constraint, we see we have a target property here. We want to pick the path that we want the object to follow. And when we click on the path, we notice it jumps right over to the path. Now, why is that the case? Let's hit Shift Z here to bring our regular view back. Because when we attach it, this path has a property here called path animation. And with that checked, anything that's attached to it with a follow path constraint will then follow that path. So we've got that part down. If we look here, we see frames. These are the number of frames it will take for the object to traverse the path completely. Now, I think that 100 frames is a little bit slow, so I'm going to drop that down to 80 frames. So to move a little bit faster. Okay, there we go. Now, one thing you might see when you attach your object to your path is when it's animated, it might be moving in the opposite direction, or the direction you don't want it to travel in. There's two ways that you can fix that. One, if you tab into your edit mode, I've already got these turned on, but this is what you'll likely see if you tab into edit mode. Right? You can then go up here to your display options and turn on normals. Just like objects have normals, mesh objects have normals, so do curves. And you see, if we change the size, let's go with 2.5, make it half as big. You see, it's got like little arrows, and that tells you the direction of the curve. Now, you can fix this one of two ways. If it's a simple curve, you can simply select it in edit mode, and you can rotate it on the chosen axis, which is X in this case, 90 degrees, excuse me. Rotate it on X 180 degrees because you want to turn it all the way over, and it literally just turns the curve around. But that didn't work because it's swapped that. If I rotate this in X 180 degrees, there we go. I must have done something wrong. So now it's moving in the opposite direction. So that's one way to fix it. Another way to fix it, probably easier, make sure all your points are selected, hit segments, and say switch direction. Okay? You can do it as many times as you like to get the path going in the direction that you want the object to go. Okay, so a couple of things. We got to get it to follow the direction of the curve, and we got to get it to roll. So first things first, direction of the curve. What do we mean by that? Well, if we follow or watch the ball as it moves along the path now, watch the front of the ball, you would think that it would continue pointing at the curve, right? But it doesn't. It just kind of turns along with the curve. So there's a simple solution for that. It's this follow curve property. Now, if we hit it, the direction of the ball is going to change. Okay, so now it's pointing up because that was its original orientation, and we have the up axis to Z and the forward axis to Y. I would recommend that if this is working, then I wouldn't change it. Let's just experiment with this real quick. Rotate it on X 90 degrees in edit mode. So now we'll see the front of that. Now watch, it's going to turn. See, now it turns and the ball follows the curve, which is what we want it to do. Now it wouldn't, really do that in real life, but stylistically it just looks better. Let's bring that back to here. Now, if the ball is not facing in the direction that you want after you follow the path or follow the curve, then I would not, try to use these axes, because you can change the directions here. You can use, but notice, see the ball jumped somewhere else, and let's see, put on negative X. That seems to work, but it hasn't really changed the direction, and we can change the up axis. It just kind of messes things up. So if from the start everything is moving along that path, and you want to change the direction of whatever your object is, I would tab into edit mode, adjust it, adjust its rotation, and you can also adjust its position if necessary, depending on the look you're going for. Instead of trying to use these options over here. These never seem to work right. Or at least if they do, I don't know how to get them to work right. So now let's get this ball rolling. It's something as simple as finding the correct axis of rotation, which looks like it's X, but it's a negative X. Right here, negative X. So that's not a problem, right? We can do this a couple ways. If we put in a single keyframe, let's add a single keyframe here, make sure it's at frame 0. And we go all the way over here to frame 80, and let's give it 2 rotations, which would be 360. It's 720, but you can do math in here. So 360 times 2, we'll say. And that gives us 720 rotations. Make sure we insert that keyframe right there. And it's going the wrong way because I forgot it's got to go in the negative direction. So we want to come in here and change that to negative 720. Replace those keyframes. You know what? I want to replace a single keyframe. I like to keep my graphs clean. I only like to animate what has to be animated, okay? And so now the ball is rolling. But you notice it's rolling too slowly. So in order to get that to work, we would it's not even going to the end. Oh, I know why. Let's check our path again. Make sure. That's just because I was doing some experimenting off camera. That shouldn't happen for yours. Make sure it's the proper number of frames. And now to roll down to the end and back. Okay, so now it looks like, so we got a looping animation so far, so that's pretty good. But it's rolling too slowly, so we could come over here to the ball, and we could come here to the last keyframe, and we could add on some rotations. But it's trial and error. It's not a bad way of doing it. It's one way of doing it. There's another way that's a little easier. Okay, so let's delete that last keyframe, right? We'll keep the first one because we're going to need it. Let's split our viewport here. Just grab that corner. Let's give ourselves a graph editor. Okay. Now, I saw this in a video by CG Matter. Follow CG Matter on YouTube. He's awesome. Let's see. So we have our sphere, and make sure we have a single keyframe on there, because without a keyframe, we can't access this property, which is its X rotation. And if we can't access that X rotation, then we can't put a modifier on it. Okay, you notice how we click here. We don't have our modifiers tab over here. If we click on the rotation, now we do have our modifiers tab. So don't ask me why this works this way, but just add a generator. Expanded polynomial right here, leave it at that. And this number right here is what we need to be concerned with. So if we let it go, you see now it's rolling. It looks like it's rolling backwards though. So if we add a negative, just like we had with the X rotation, now it's rolling forwards. Now it looks like it's rolling way too fast. So all we got to do is lower this number. So it was on -1. So let's make it -0.1. Okay, and now it's rolling, but it's rolling way too slow. So let's make it let's try 0.3. So you see, it's trial and error here as well, but it's a little easier, I think, doing it here than doing it in this rotation. You have to set keyframes over and over again. Here you just have to change the number. So that looks like, that roll looks pretty good to me. It might be a little fast, but it looks pretty good. We can adjust it again later. So, okay, so now we've got the rotation dialed in pretty good. Let's move on to actually getting this to be a seamless loop. So it looks like a camera is moving along with it. So we'll do all that next. So how do we get this endless look, right? How this stage continues going. We obviously see, at least there's the seam right there, we'll say. So that's one stage, two stage. We see 2 or 3 stages minimum at a time, right? We don't see just one set at the stage. So we have to have multiple sets, so to speak, of that stage. And how do we do that? Whoops, daisy. And how do we do that? Well, we can make copies or instances of our entire set. So how do we do that? Let's do this. Let's take all our items here, select everything. Let's stop the ball rolling. If we select everything and then we hit M, we can then say new collection, and we'll call this our rolling, let's make cap locks, rolling ball and stage collection. Okay. So now we have all these items in a collection, and we can create a collection instance. So we come here to the stage and we say Shift A, and we simply say collection instance. We pick our rolling ball and stage, and there we go. We have another copy of it. And because we got the dimensions of our rolling ball and stage before, where is that? The stage itself, which we called cube. Let's name it stage. Okay. Since we got the dimensions before, which is 3 feet, all we have to do is go to our instance, and let's say on Y, 3 feet, and it's right next to it, perfectly aligned. So let's copy this a couple more times, Shift D, and then instead of 3 feet, 6 feet. And let's do one more, but let's do it at the other end, Shift D. And instead of 6 feet, -3 feet. So now we have our original stage here. We have copies on either side. So when we play it, we get the same, let's see, the same ball looping animation over and over again. You see we got a little stutter there. We'll fix that in just a moment. Let's set up our camera. So Shift A, let's add in a camera. And then we're going to go over here. We hit N for our N panel, go to our view and say lock camera to view, which was already on there. And where's our camera? We don't want it in there. We want our camera outside of that collection and simply inside the main scene collection, because we only want one. Hit 0 on your number pad, and with it locked to view, you can just scroll out here. We're going to frame up a nice little view. Let's go to our camera options and go to our viewport display and turn up the passepartout, however that's pronounced. That makes things easier to see. Let's zoom this out a bit so we can see. Now we have our camera locked to our view, and now we can dial in our view. We don't want to see more than one ball at a time, and we want to kind of be focused on the center. So we're seeing two at one time, too many. Zoom in a little more. Make sure that we only see one at a time. Change the angle. That's close. That's close. Well, the camera's going to be moving anyway, so let's wait until we get the camera to move, and we'll dial that in perfectly. For now, let's fix that stutter that we see at the finish line, I guess you could call it. Bring up our end panel, turn off our lock camera to view because we don't want to move our camera. We want to just get out of our camera view. If we look at everything from the top view, here's our original. That's the one we'd have to edit. And we see we got a stutter. I believe that stutter is due to the path, right? I think the path is overlapping. And if we turn off all of those other, see, yeah, the path is just too long on either side. And that's because we took it from this Boolean object, which we had to make bigger than the stage for the Boolean to work properly. So let's simply shrink that. Well, we won't shrink it. We'll simply move some of these points. Now, what you don't want to do is you don't want to delete any of these points. I've done that, and it's caused me some problems. But I think what we can do is if we select this point, we Shift S, and we say cursor to selected, and then we come up here and we set our adjustment point. I'm not sure exactly. Oh, transform pivot point to 3D cursor. That means everything's going to scale to that point. If we select all of these, and then we scale them along Y, we can get them to end where we want. And now what we want is we want that last guy right there. We want him to end pretty much right on the edge, so that if we go here to the end, we see our ball ends pretty much on that point. It should end on its origin point. It's a little short, so that might be an issue, but let's see if we can get this to work that way. So we're going to come over here, we're going to pick this point, Shift S, cursor to selected, select all these guys, let's get a little tighter in on here, and then scale Y, bring them to that point there. Okay, so let's see if that worked by turning these guys back on, hitting play, and hopefully we don't get that stutter. Nope, okay, looks pretty smooth to me. Yeah. All right. So now we've got, let's look in our camera view. We've got our ball rolling along our path, and it's doing so endlessly. But now we want to animate our camera along with our ball. So how do we do that? Well, we obviously want to move our camera along the global, I think it's the Y-axis. Let's see. Let's go to our camera. And we have our Y location. It's not. All right, let's see. Oh, we don't have the camera. Okay, so here's our camera. And let's see the Y location. Yeah, okay, so we want to move it along the Y location to follow the ball, right? But we don't want to just go continually because then we run out of track, right? So let's bring it back to its original location. We want to move it along with the ball. So how can we do that? There's, you know, I guess a number of ways it could be done. I mean, technically we could parent it to the ball, but if we did, then it's got to contend with this changing path. We could constrain it just to one axis, the Y-axis position of the ball, but then the Y position doesn't continue along the stage at the same rate. I've done this a couple times, and I just found the best way to do it is to use another object to animate along the stage at the same rate of the ball, and then parent the camera to it. It's easier if I just show you. So what we need is an object to animate the length of the stage at the same rate that the ball goes. So it starts as the ball starts, and it reaches the end just as the ball reaches the end. So let's set that up by going into edit mode on our stage, going into vertex mode, selecting that first vertex, Shift S, set our cursor to selected. Now we want to create an object that we want to parent our camera to, and perfect thing for that is an empty. So we will create an empty, plain axes, And then we're going to set a keyframe for its Y position. Okay, set that back to the beginning there. And we're going to come in here. We're going to say insert single keyframe. Right. Then we're going to go back into our stage, and we're going to select that vertex at the end, Shift S, cursor to selected, tap back into object mode, select our empty. We want to do Shift S, and we want to say selection to cursor. And then it looks like it didn't move. And the reason why is because we've got it in our collection again here. Let's bring it out into our scene collection. So we only have one object. Okay. There we go. And we want to select the empty, and we want to say Shift S, selection to cursor. Now, oh, because we got the animation playing, duh. Stop the animation. And now say Shift S, selection to cursor. And now we want to mark this single keyframe again. So now what we have, let's make sure we do it at the end of the animation. So we pull this all the way down to 80. And so now what we have is if we watch that empty, watch it animates, keeps going. Now, even though that ball changes direction and it's not moving on Y, it's moving on X. Now it's back to Y. Now it's back to X. So it falls behind or it goes ahead of the empty, falls behind the empty a little bit on the Y axis, but then it catches up, again, passes, and then it falls behind right almost to it. And they both get to the end at the same time, right there. So that's what we're looking for. And so now all we have to do is parent our camera to our empty, select our camera, select our empty, Control P, say object keep transform, go into our camera view, and what do we see? It's following the ball. Now, it's not exactly where we want it to be. Let's go back into our camera, which is now a child of the empty. Go into our view, and we can turn on our camera to view again, and we'll move our stage right about to there. Right? Excuse me. I think that's roughly where we want it to be. Maybe that ball wants to be a little centered there. Yeah, let's make the ball a little more centered. Let's check it out. We play our animation. Now, there we go. We have our perfect looping animation. And what the viewer doesn't realize is that it's not going along this eternal path here, because it's not eternal. There's only a certain amount. We come out of our camera view and we see, look what the camera's doing. It's following it, and it's just jumping right back to that first position when it loops, and it's just showing that one section. We could have maybe done without. Let me see. This section right here. Let's see if that works. And yep, starts over. So we didn't need 4, we just needed 3. And we needed the one in the center, and that would have worked there. All right. So hopefully that's useful for you. Hopefully you enjoyed it. And like I said earlier, hopefully this is the beginning of several more of these walkthroughs I do. Let me know in the comments if there's any questions you have about this particular project, or if there's anything else, any other points from it you want me to elaborate on. And let me know what else you want to see. I'm just going to pick some of the projects I've worked on and do some more of these. And hopefully they prove to be useful or educational to some of you. Okay, great. Thank you very much for paying attention. If you could like the video, that would be great. It would help me out. If you want to subscribe, that would be great as well. And we'll see you in the next video.